How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. We're on to another episode of Backstage Press. We have Chris of 307 Artist Management. Obviously, you've seen him before on a completely different reason, and obviously he can say what he does and all that stuff.
What's going on? Yeah. So I guess how some people might know me is through my band, Soft Spoken. I play guitar / manage that band. And then, yeah, I'm an artist manager at 307.
There we go. Well, the first thing, Chris, obviously I have to ask is how did you get, I mean, obviously you're in a band and I've had you on to talk about that, but like, how did you kind of step into the managerial role of like managing bands? I know shouts to Joey of Varsity, you manage Varsity too, and like obviously you can go through your roster of like the bands that you manage. So like, was that a natural step for you, and did that, I guess, happen before the band happened, or was it kind of like in conjunction? Because I'm curious, obviously.
Yeah. It's kind of, I guess it was kind of a natural progression. I've been in and out of bands for like 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 31. My first band I was 16 or 17. And I've always been called the band dad, even when I was like 17. I was always kind of the one with the plan and the ideas and like pushing everything to move forward. So I've kind of naturally had that, like, I guess, leadership role in a lot of the projects I've been a part of. But especially with Soft Spoken, like when I decided to move home and start up Soft Spoken, I wanted to do it right from the beginning. And I'd been studying up on a lot of blogs and other podcasts and different resources like that to try to learn the industry side of things.
Yeah.
And applied that a lot to my own band first. And then, I kind of toyed with the idea of like calling myself a manager, but it's kind of like nerve-wracking at the same time because, other than my own band, which still has a lot to prove, I don't really have any accolades. So I was kind of like apprehensive about it. And then gradually bands that Soft Spoken played with would come like reach out to me. And Revenant that I managed was actually the first kind of, band that I officially started managing through like my own agency before I hooked up with 307. And then through Revenant, Joey, and Varsity hit me up, and then it's kind of word of mouth thing, and really all of the bands that I work with are bands that I've played with too. So they're bands that I have that kind of connection with. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, and it's good to hear because, like I said, Soft Spoken, I feel like, is doing some good stuff right now, and obviously I'm excited to listen to that reimagined version of it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
But like, so, obviously, like you said, you had started out doing like this sort of like being that band dad. So do you feel like that also translates into like, how you want all those other bands that you like manage now, like when you're going out to find different bands, do you like go to find different bands, or is it necessarily like, okay, they come to me because they're like, oh, Joey said something good, or someone from like the Revenant was like, oh, you should check this band out, we played with them in XYZ city. So do you do like your own recon, or is it necessarily like, okay, like if one of my friends that's in the bands that manage is like, yo, check out this band, you should manage them, is that the kind of par for course, or is it something different?
I'd say it's kind of a mix of both. Typically, for the bands that I work with, it's been like a suggestion. I do like, just on Discover Weekly or whatever on Spotify, or, sometimes ads pop up on Facebook and I'll check them out and be like, oh, all right, these are pretty cool. And I'll make notes and kind of like keep track of bands. But I also am very careful about not overloading myself.
Sure.
In terms of, my roster and what I have to do. Especially Varsity and Revenant are pretty intensive in terms of like what they're doing, and they're great dudes. I just mean in terms of like what they're doing. They don't cause a lot of trouble or anything. But yeah, and then sometimes it's suggestions, and then sometimes the other manager, main guy that works at 307, his name's Jim. He'll find a band, or a band will reach out to him, and we'll kind of like tag team it or whatever. But
yeah, and then how did you and Jim meet, where you also like two band dudes and you're both like, well, we're like band dads, so like we should just like do stuff together, like, how did that kind of formulate? Because I feel like a lot of times, like when you have a manager and you're like, at least I understand, like doing Audio Addiction all by myself, like I'm like, I don't know if I would have shared the responsibility. I know it sounds very narcissistic for me to say, but like sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'd rather do it myself. So was that something like you're like looking for, or was it just like a happy accident where you're like, wow, Jim's a great fit. Like, why don't I just ask him to come on and like do the managerial stuff with me for 307?
Yeah, so it's kind of the other way around. I'm very much the same way. Like I rely on myself sometimes to a fault.
Yeah.
And like to, I'm kind of the same thing. Like even the guys in my band, I'll give them tasks, but sometimes I'm just like, I'm just going to do it because I know it'll get done right now. And it definitely was that way. Like when I decided originally, I have this company that I work that's called Theoria Group, and originally my management was Theoria Management, and it was just me. And Jim is not a band guy. He's been managing for a minute. Several bands. Like his biggest band right now is I Set to Kill.
Oh, cool.
But he's done a lot of different bands, and so he used to manage this band called I Omega, and
Oh, nice. Yeah.
their vocalist Clay is a friend of mine, and he plays in a band called Foxbat. They're from Louisville, Kentucky. And I guess Jim had hit up Clay saying like, "Hey, I need, I'm looking for like a management assistant kind of thing." And Clay, like didn't want to do it, but Clay hit me up about it, and it was like, Jim's a solid dude. And I'd never really spoken with Jim before that, but I was like, okay, I'll chat with him and kind of see, what's up. And my kind of thing was like, I wanted to maintain the roster that I had and kind of my freedom to do things how I want, but also, I'll do what Jim needs me to do. So he's a cool dude. He's really flexible. He knows a lot. He gives me advice all the time. Pretty much every day I'll text him and be like, "Hey man, what do you think about this?"
Yeah.
So yeah, it was more like 307 existed and is owned by Sean from Revival Records in
Yes.
Alisana. And then he has a hand in some of the artists as well. And then Jim brought me on to kind of handle some of the social stuff, and then I maintain my roster and that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad there's multiple avenues that you're just working, because I know, like
Yeah,
I said,
man.
I see you grind it out. I respect that, because I'm the same way with like a lot of the stuff I do. I'm like, I appreciate it, and I feel like a lot of the times that people do this stuff is because like you're like self-driven and you like can
Yeah.
do it and stuff like that. So I was like, I gotta ask. I was like, as soon as I was like coming up with this thought, I was like, let me message Chris. I was like, I know he'd be down to come back on for like soft spoken, but I was like,
For sure.
I wonder if he'd want to come on if he was gonna be talking about something different, like something a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
more out of the box. But I guess what are some of the things that you look for in a band when you go to like manage them? Like are there like key things that you're like looking for out of a band? Like even stuff that you're saying like you're just listening to them on like Spotify weekly. So like I'm curious on how much, and I'm sure people watching this are curious on like how much recon like a manager does, like in terms of like if they like the band, would you like, I mean, I feel like you wouldn't manage a band if you didn't like their music, or you weren't like, oh my god, like this band's sick, like I gotta do it. Like I feel like that with like Varsity, shouts to Joey.
Yeah.
But like, like his stuff, like I'm like, holy shit, like this is awesome. And so for me, like I'm curious from like a managerial perspective, like, what are some of the key things you look for?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm sure it's different per manager.
Sure, yeah.
For me, it's not for me, not at all like based on the thought of this band's going to blow up and I can make money off of them. It's kind of like, can I see passion that I have in them and what they're doing? And that was kind of originally the idea behind Theoria. My theory was like having traits of like passion and honesty and integrity and just being creative were like kind of what I called the pillars. Sorry, my phone just popped up. My bad. But so those were kind of like traits that I thought were important to the DIY ethic, kind of like grinding. And so I kind of look for that in bands. It's not all just a numbers game. Obviously, if a band pops up I've never heard of and they have like really good numbers, then I'm like, okay, well that's awesome. They're doing well.
Yeah.
But I also work with a few bands that aren't officially on 307 that are like much smaller, more development kind of bands. But I really like who they are, and like I really like their music, of course, but just who they are as people and the passion and the grind that they show me is also big.
So you just
So
want to
it's kind
see,
of a mix.
you want to see the potential in a band. Like you want to be able to
Yeah.
obviously like from the perspective of like making money, because I feel like that is the given. But I also feel in the sense like a lot of the managers that I've had on so far to do this, you've all kind of had a similar answer where you've all been
Yeah.
like, yeah, there has to be something that like that you're passionate about, something you can like you see in somebody else. But I feel like the one thing that kind of I feel like for me separates you from everybody else was that you're like, I don't really care about the numbers. I care if that at the end of the day, if it's not a business thing, they're just like, okay, like, are they somebody I could be like that, like I care about as like a friend and want to see their band, like kind of see the potential of their band grow, but not necessarily like, oh, it's a managerial thing. It's like if I was a fan, I'd want to see this band like become big. I'd want them to have the fans that they have for that reason. So
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think that, like I said, I feel like a lot of people in the industry, specifically our music, have that sort of strength where we're all like, we all want the best for each other's bands. And the whole reason why I started this was because like a lot of the people behind the scenes, they do a lot of work. Like I know you do a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
work and stuff like that. So for me, it was like I need to have people on here that like I know grind it out from day to day. Obviously, soft spoken guys, if you haven't checked out soft spoken, go do that. But like I feel like there's a grind aspect to it that like you were saying before with Theoria, like for me, like when I have people on here, I'm like, I want to see that drive in somebody else that I see in myself, because I know I work a 9 to 5 job and I do this in my free time. So like,
Right. Right.
I want to see that. So, I think it's very cool what you're doing with the 307, and I'm excited to see who you get on next. But I guess the next question, Chris, would be who would be one person you'd want to manage? Like if it was like a dream person, you would be like, I'd be super stoked to be like, yeah, let me get this person to, I want to work with them. It just seems like a given.
Like a band that I'd want to manage.
Yeah, a band that you would want to like manage or work with.
That's a good question.
Might as well put it out in the universe. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta like separate myself as a fan. I mean, because there is the aspect of liking the music, but
Sure.
but I also have to see like a need for me to be there. Because if it's like if the band doesn't need me, like what I can bring to the table, then there's no point in me
Let's just
managing
say
them.
like a perfect scenario where
Okay.
they need you and it's a band you enjoy, obviously.
Okay. Probably As Cities Burn.
Ooh, okay. That's a
So,
classic.
I mean,
That's
yeah.
great. Well,
They're good dudes.
as cities burn, I would assume you watch my content. I don't know, but if you did, we're gonna tweet at you because audio addiction's all about that. So I don't know if you're looking for a manager, but hit my boy Chris up. It's good. But the next question, Chris, what I feel like I've already asked you this question because you're in the very rare you're in the very rare position where I've had your band on and I've asked you questions about this. But I guess kind of to play off of what I asked you earlier, you were talking about Spotify. So I guess who have you been jamming now since the last time we chatted? It's been a little bit, so I'm curious who you're listening to now.
Let me see. A lot. That's a good question. Let me bring up my Spotify.
There you go. Good idea, Chris.
So I have been jamming the new Bieber.
Ooh, interesting. Would have never expected that.
Yeah, mostly that's the influence of Sam, our singer, is a Bieber fan, as is his fiance. So it's kind of washed off on me. I'm always a fan of Slaves. Obviously, the new Picturesque stuff is really sweet. There's a band in Kentucky called Refractions.
Ooh, yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
They're really good. They just put out a new track, and the guy that we to for a lot of our the Perception, the Reimagine tracks, the producer we go to does all their stuff also. And then let me see what else I've been jamming here. Louis Capaldi is another one that I go back to regularly. Yeah. And then this isn't necessarily new, but Oceana, however you want to pronounce it, it's like one of my staples. So I've just been jamming them a lot lately too.
There we go. And then
Yeah.
the last thing, Chris, tell me about 307. Like, obviously, like how, what's the best way to contact you? Some of the stuff you're looking for, if like they want to send you an email, or like the best way to go about reaching out to you, if you like, if they have any questions, or like if they want to set up an engagement, like how would be the best way to do that?
Yeah. So my email is just Chris at 307artistmanagement.com. Pretty long, but send me an email anytime. I am not really looking to add to my roster at the moment, but I'll always check out new bands. And my main thing is, like I mentioned earlier, just like make sure that you know what you need, in a sense. Like, so if you're, whether you're pitching to me or to another potential manager or a booking agent or whatever, like I feel like a lot of bands kind of have this thought that there's like set steps for how to get to success, quote unquote. And that involves like, putting out an album, getting on Billboard, finding a manager, finding a booking agent, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think there's really one set answer for
Sure.
that just applies across the board. I think it depends on your band and what you have. And like my band, I basically self-manage. Jim is kind of like a co-manager of our band with me. And then we have an agent now at Dynamic, formerly Artery. But before that, I just self-booked a lot of stuff. So I have that. I picked up those skills on my own. And I think that's, for me, like as a manager, I want to see that like a band isn't coming to me relying on me to do everything for them, but to amplify what they're already doing. So if I can't see that, then I'm not really going to be that interested.
Okay, yeah, because shouts to my boy Ollie at Scarum. He had come on, and he said something very similar. So I feel like that's a good takeaway for a lot of bands. Because I mean, obviously, I'm not in a band, but if I was to ever start a music project, and I needed a manager, I feel like first of all, I'd be able to do it myself. Not trying to pump myself up, but like I feel like with a lot of bands, they even from kind of I guess like an external perspective, because I'm just so familiar with like how kind of things go. I feel like for myself, like when I see that, I think the same thing. I'm like, even when I have bands on and I'm like doing interviews, I'm like, I'm hoping that you guys are active and that you guys want to do it, and it's not just someone that's just like one person just being like the mule and just doing everything. You know what I mean?
Right,
Somebody
right.
could do that, but I feel like when a band is really good and they have all their things going, like it's cool when like one member kind of does one thing and another member kind of does another thing, and it's just kind of like spread out, and it's showing that you have the drive, and that it's not just like one guy is just like, okay, like you do it. And I mean, sometimes that works for bands, but I feel like with a lot of success with bands and stuff, and obviously talking with more people in the industry, I've noticed that kind of trend where like you gotta put in what you get out. So like if you're not driving for it, then I feel like a band, a manager's not going to be interested. Like maybe a press outlet's not going to be interested or whatever. I think it's when you put your heart into it and show that you care about it and you want to do it, that I feel like that's true about anything. But I feel like in this industry where, when you have to put your name out there and you have that like presence, you want to make sure it's a good one. You don't want to just fold up and just be like, oh, well, whatever. Like, we'll get another one. Because I feel like, and another point from another interview is that we all talk collectively. So I feel like if something's not good, I mean, I feel like I'm not going to say it because I'm not that type of person, but I know there's some people out there that will be like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that band or whatever, and they'll give their honest opinion. So, I feel like put the drive in, and I don't know if Chris has anything else to add about that, but I think I feel like I kind of mostly covered it, but if you want to add anything, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, and just to get down to like the straight business of it, I mean, because there's the personal aspect, especially for me, like I want to be connected and have a connection with people I'm working with, but
sure.
But on the other end, it's also time, and time is money,
Yeah.
So, if I can just sense from a band, like these dudes are gonna be hard to work with, they're hard to talk to, they don't want to listen to me, like they think that they haven't figured out, et cetera, like then it's not worth my time. I'm not going to stress out over a band that's not really going to listen to me, kind of thing. And then like with all the bands, especially like Joey's a great example in Varsity, like he does a lot for his band.
Yeah.
So he's kind of definitely the band dad of Varsity. And it's like he learns from me as much as I learn from him, you know, and he's got a ton of connections himself already. And so I think it's a very two-way street, you know, like I don't think I know everything, but he doesn't either. And it's a give and take. So I think there's an aspect of humility, but also confidence, you know, I don't know. There's a balancing act, I guess. But
No, I agree. Even when I have bands on here and stuff like that, and I was like, I could understand because like the whole Skype, you know, like the whole like video chat thing could be very unnerving to some
yeah,
people,
yeah,
especially if they've never done it or they don't do it very often. I do it all the time, so I feel like it's just second nature to me. But
right.
you know, when there's a level of confidence and like you really care about your band, I can see it. Like there's something about it, like being an interviewer and doing this press stuff for a little over 4 years now. You know, there's something about it when a band really believes and really is passionate in what they do. So like, don't feel like, you know, you have to be like, oh, this manager, I'm just gonna let this manager do what he wants. Like,
Right, right.
you have to have a little bit of like confidence, as Chris is saying, and like show that you're like, okay, I may not know it all, but like, you know, I'm down to learn, and if I feel like I know it, then I'm gonna say like, oh, this is what I think about it, what do you think about it? And like you said, it's two-way street. I think much like with anything in this industry, it's like if you can learn from someone else, it's only gonna make your band that much better. So
For sure.
I would agree with that. But go check out Chris at 307 Management. I'm sure he will send me the links to where he can reach out to him.
Will do.
Definitely shoot him an email. I don't feel like he might not be the like DM me kind of type of person. I feel like I can be that way sometimes, but I would definitely shoot Chris an email, get to know him. Great dude. Go check out his brand, Soft Spoken. I know this isn't a band interview thing, but I feel like I gotta give him if we're doing the plugs, I gotta give him the Soft Spoken
For
plug
sure.
too.
Appreciate
So
it.
go check out that stuff. If you enjoy this interview, share it, like and subscribe. If you're a part of the music business thing and you want to come tell your story, feel free to email me. You can DM me because I'll most likely answer it. So definitely do that. And thanks, of course, to Chris for coming on for a completely different reason.
Yeah, yeah. Of course. Thanks for having me, man.